One particularly dark evening, tons of snow on the ground. I'm in Nova Scotia, right? I'm like, man, the weather sucks because I love the beach. I love going outside all the time, right? That's kind of more of my vibe. And so I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, I wish I was in California. And, my accountant's like, you need a new practice name or corporate name because I just sold my offices. Da, da, da. I wish I was in California. Maggie's going to California. I'm like, it's going to be mgcalign.com.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of your Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today's going to be a great day. For many of you who listen regularly, I had knee surgery not long ago. So today, I am under the influence of pharmaceutical narcotics of some sort. So who knows? Today should be fun. I'm taking hydrocodone. And I want to welcome to the studio a new champion, Dr. Maggie Barnard. Welcome, Maggie.
Hello, Glenn. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be on your podcast. We're going to have a great time.
I am thrilled to have you here. I'm just happy that you're here because you were one of those folks who I wasn't really sure about. You never would have thought ever about being on the podcast. It was not something that you would ever given any thought to. It was not something you ever. But I had a post in Orthopreneurs about side hustles and things people do, and I think people are going to find what you have to talk about to be really interesting. I don't want to give a spoiler alert. I just want to sort of set it up a little bit there, like a teaser. If I were to ask orthodontists, what's their one biggest nuisance in practice? Arguably, what you've solved could be one of their biggest problems because you're a wonderful human being who's just enjoys doing something that most people do not. And we'll talk about that later. But other things that'll be fun today is, folks, she's Canadian. She's from Nova Scotia. I've already thanked her for the locks. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Sorry. But we're going to talk a little bit about Canadian orthodontics. We're going to talk a little bit about her practice life. And then we're going to get into a little bit about something she's created that really could help you guys out, which, for full transparency, I have no financial interest in whatsoever, right?
Yeah, so that's true.
Let's start here. I already let the cat out of the bag and told people you're from Nova Scotia, which, unfortunately, for many Americans, probably don't even realize that is Canada, but we'll just let that go for right now.
It is Canada.
And we know darn well it's part of Canada. No, that's more Ottawa.
We do that a lot. We go A.
You do a lot of that?
Oh, yeah.
I always thought that was an Ontario thing, more Ottawa.
Nova Scotia, too. It comes in waves. So sometimes it's very popular to say A. Other times it goes, but it always comes back. It's definitely a maritime thing, too.
I'm going to start using it in some of our conversation here today, Maggie.
I think you should. I will try to as well.
Yeah, it sounds good to me, eh? I went to school in Buffalo, New York. I hung out with Torontonians for years. I learned all about zebras, grade 13, and A. So, and Tim Hortons and Molson Canadian. So these are the things I got from my Canadian friends, for which I'm forever thankful. But let's start here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you mind giving everybody a little quick update about who you are and how you kind of ended up where you are right now?
Absolutely. So I'm Maggie. I've been an orthodontist for about 15 years. Love what I do. I've loved orthodontics. I was very fortunate because when I was in grad school, one of my instructors from dental school, who was an orthodontist here, he approached me and said, hey, do you want to buy a practice? And I said, absolutely. We actually worked together in the same building when I was a general dentist. I did general dentistry for about 5 years.
Oh, right on.
And we got along great. And so it was kind of a natural move, it wasn't a big surprise. I went to shadow at his office when I was still in grad school, and he introduced me as, hey, this is Maggie. I hope she works with us.
That's awesome.
And so the rest is history. So I knew where I was going, in second year of grad school, and our grad school program was 3 years. And I have to say, it was the most amazing working relationship for approximately 13 years. He was supposed to stay for 5. Shout out to Lee Erickson. And he ended up staying for 13 years because we had so much fun working together. He was an amazing mentor. We did cases, every few mornings a week, and we just had a lot of laughs. It was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful setup. Sadly, Lee retired. And I actually, in the process, so about 2 years into working with Lee, I was at an oral surgery function having some beverages with my oral surgery friends. And one of the other orthodontists, who was also an instructor here, approached me and he said, "Hey, Maggie, I was surprised you came back. You never came and saw me. I would have liked to sell you my practice." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting. I think I can buy yours too." And so I ended up with two very big practices that way. And I actually built and grew them, and we had a blast. So I ran that one as a satellite. Wonderful, wonderful experience. And,
Beautiful.
then came COVID, you know, the older orthodontist, not older, but, more experienced orthodontist
Yeah,
decided that they wanted to retire and kind of move on. It was a hard working environment, right? Because we were legislated to work
right.
sort of very differently than they sort of grew up in orthodontics working, face shields and scrubs and gowns and all that. Like, I don't think
What
it
was it
was as
like in
much fun.
Canada, by the way?
Pardon
In
me?
Canada, I know in the US what it was like, but if I remember correctly, Canada was even more stiff, if you will, more
I
uptight
Yeah, I think
about the
so.
rules.
I think that's very accurate. And it was tough, so Dr. Burke, who was the other orthodontist, so that was my satellite practice. He retired a little earlier than that. That was always his plan. But I think Lee, that had something to do with it because he wasn't having as much fun anymore, right? He used to
Fair
tease
enough.
the kids and talk to everybody, and I mean, it was a blast. And we were limited even in our interaction with patients because at that point it was like, okay, you can't really discuss things, kind of in and out kind of mentality, right? When the pandemic was
Right.
at its highest. And so anyway, so I ended up with these two very big growing practices, and I was like, okay, I'm used to working with these great orthodontist, and I love working as a team. What can we do? And sort of in the background there was an OSO who approached me before several times, and I said no, and that was good timing for me to join. So they bought my practices around 2022, and I stayed on to associate for about 2 years. And back then, I was looking at Invisalign and going, man, I'm running these two really big practices. I'm working full time, and I get home and I spend 2 hours doing Invisalign every evening, right? Because I was setting them up for me, I was setting them up for some other associates in the practice. And I was like, man, this is really time consuming and I love it. I think I got, quite efficient at setting it up. But it was a lot with running two offices. And so I sold, I kind of carried out my contract. I finished up my contract with the OSO, and I thought, what's next? So Glenn, I started playing competitive tennis and setting up Invisalign.
Well, don't get into that. I'm not going to let you get into the Invisalign yet. We're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I am, and I'm doing a bunch of locums, whole bunch of different things. So that's my practice life.
Very cool. So,
Thanks.
to recap for everybody out there, you came out of school, you practiced as a GP for 5 years,
Yeah.
ended up buying a couple of practices, grew them,
Hmm.
partnered with an OSO in Canada,
Yeah.
left after 2 years. You still do locum tenens work for them, and you
Yeah.
started this side company that we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you said earlier, and I knew this beforehand, that you got into competitive tennis. Like me, um, I wouldn't say late in life, but later than
Yes.
college, you started getting competitive in a sport. And I
Yes.
think it's people look at us a little bit crazy because for me it's
I think so
jujitsu,
too.
or
Yeah.
at least it was jujitsu. For it seems like for the next 9 to 12 months there is no jujitsu.
It
As I
will be
recover,
again.
it will be. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But people kind of look at us and like, why do you do this? Like, why do you want to compete? Right? Why can't you just enjoy the ride? And my answer to them is that I think you're just built this way, right?
I
Like
think so
there's
too.
something about going one on one. There's something about the competition that sharpens the knife a little bit. It makes you a little bit better. And it makes it hard to just be good enough. You want to be better than good enough, right? And
Yeah.
what do you tell people when I have no doubt invariably they come to you and go, Maggie, what are you doing? Why are you doing competitive tennis? Why can't you just be a club player?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because that's exactly what it is. Because you get there and you're like, okay, I'm having so much fun playing at the club level. And then one of your friends convinces you to do a tournament and you're hooked because you're like, I can get better. I can do this better. I can make myself better. And
Right.
it's more a competition with yourself. Just like, our work is how good can you get? And it's just a boatload of fun, to be honest, right? and
It is.
and it's fun sort of at this age, if I may, to say, okay, I can kick ass with younger people. There's something about it too, don't you think, Glad, that you get out there? Like, my husband does jujitsu, so I look at it and I'm like, I know exactly where you're coming from because I'm sure you're rolling with people who are much younger than you, and you're going,
Listen,
okay, I
listen to
just
her
won
use the
that.
words, folks. Listen to her talk about rolling. You hear
Yeah.
that? That's the wife of a jiu-jitsu guy right there. That's the woman you marry right there, people. I just want to say she's an orthodontist and she knows how to use the word rolling inappropriate in a sentence. By the way, how old is your husband, if you don't mind
So
me
my
asking?
husband's in his late 50s.
Okay, so he's like me, right? I'm
Yeah.
57. And does he compete?
So he used to. I think he's more sort of at the club level now, simply because he's had an injury like you, Glenn. So he kind of took it a little bit more mellow, but he's actually preparing for his next tournament.
Right on. Well, just tell him to get down to my weight class. That way we can actually compete against each other.
Oh, listen, for sure, because he would love to roll with you. See,
Yeah,
there's
tell
that
him
word.
if he's ever in Dallas, anybody out there listening, whether you've ever rolled one day or you're a fifth degree black belt, if you find yourself in Dallas, don't even bring a gi. No gi or gi doesn't matter. You've always got an open spot at our gym. We'll roll, we'll have fun. And I've done it now with probably a half a dozen people who've come through Dallas. It's been fun.
What a
I just
blast. And you know what?
I
You
just
have to
can't do
be
it till
careful.
probably March. Can't do anything until probably March, is what my doctor's telling me. So you can come, I can watch you roll, but it's true. It's I think for most orthodontists, we're built pretty
Mm,
competitively,
I think so
and
too.
and I think anything we find, if there's a competitive component to it, like how many orthodontists play in bands that actually play on a stage,
Right.
as opposed to just sit in a garage and jam every now and then, and they'll play it off, and they'll say,
Yeah.
well, we just play local bars, and well, what do you think I'm doing? You think I'm fighting for a world title? Yeah,
Yeah.
in my age and weight class, I am, but you're taking it out of the private realm and bringing it into the public realm, and that
Yes.
at the end of the day makes you work that much harder. And so, kudos to you for doing what you're doing, Maggie. It's
Thanks. And you
awesome.
know what? You too. And I think it's so exciting and it keeps our minds sharp and it keeps us fresh too. Because I
Yeah,
think like that level of physical activity, I think it's also like problem solving, right? Because tennis and
totally.
jiu-jitsu are very similar in the sense that
Very
you
similar.
are problem solving. And I think that's part of what I like so much about it. Because you have to figure out where your opponent is in or how you're going to take them down in your case, right? And
Right,
so
whatever it might be. There's an algorithm. If I do this, then I expect them to do this, and then
100%.
I'll do this. And if they don't do what you expected, now you need to change the game plan rather rapidly.
Yes.
And again, I like to call jujitsu, I'm not just me, everybody calls it 3D chess,
Yes.
right? And chess and tennis is no different. And again, it's problem solving. And the biggest compliment I can get before we move on to the next section is I went to the physical therapist today for the first time, and he looked at me, and my surgeon said the same thing. And I'm 57.
Yeah.
He talking about what kind of graft I can get, and the biggest compliment I've gotten. He says, on younger folks we do this kind of graft, and older folks we do this kind of graft. But he says, you're so active. I'm just going to treat you like you're 30 years old, and to hear somebody tell me in my late
Goals.
50s, you're without me saying a word, you're so active. That's my goal in life, right? Because a body
Me
in
too.
motion stays in motion. So, folks out there, no matter where you are on your fitness journey, whether you're playing club tennis, never picked up a racket,
Mhm.
don't do any martial arts, whatever, just start moving. And
I
if you're
agree
moving,
100%.
step it up a notch. Make yourself uncomfortable. Do something that you don't think you can do, but push the envelope. I guarantee you'll thank me later. You'll hate me right before you do it for the first time.
Totally.
You will ask, right? You ask, why
Yeah.
am I doing this? Why am I putting this pressure on myself? I don't need to do this. This is stupid. I should pull out. But then you end up going through with it. And when it's all over, you look back and go, this is the greatest thing I could have done, right?
100%. That's what I feel too, and you kind of stumble onto these things. I don't know how you started jiu-jitsu, but I kind of stumbled into tennis because my older daughter started playing. And one day she was like, well, maybe mom's not as good anymore to play with. And I was like, wait a minute,
Hold
hang
up there,
tight for
kid.
a minute here. Let me take some classes and see what I can do. Right. And then
And
the
how do you
rest
do
is
against
history.
her? How do you do against her?
I won't comment because she's going to be really angry.
Good. There's
No, she's fantastic. I'm only kidding. She's actually playing competitive tennis, and we're signing her up for all kinds of tournaments, and it's exciting, Glenn. Like it's
but
fun
she
to
can't
see
beat
her.
mom. But she
So
can't beat
she
mom.
can, she can now.
Okay. In every young man's life, there comes a day where he thinks he can take dad.
Yes,
It doesn't matter what it's in, but 99% of the time, the first time they try, they are woefully disappointed. In fact,
totally.
there is a real thing called old man strength. It
Yes,
exists.
it's a thing. You know what? My
It
husband
exists.
has a sweatshirt that actually says that, and it's jujitsu, old men's strength. No joke. It's
Oh,
fantastic.
young people are scared to roll with older folks sometimes because
Oh
they're
yeah,
just like, where did that come from? I said, don't worry. In 20 or 30 years, you'll have some strength too.
you'll know
And
how to do
so,
that.
So let's get into a little bit more about now what it is we really want to talk about, which is that you have a superpower, and your superpower is you absolutely love doing Clinchecks. You love doing
I
Clinchecks.
do. It's a thing. It's become a thing. I didn't think I would when I started them out, but I think it's another one of those things that the more you do, the more you get used to it, right?
Right.
It became a little competition with myself. Okay, can I set it up better? Can I make this case go faster? Can I make it go better? So I think it's gone down that way. And then I came up with the idea, wait a minute. When I was in private practice, what took up so much of my time that I wish it didn't, and that I could hand it off to somebody I trusted and
Clinchecks.
yes, and just have it go away. Clinchecks, right? And I got, you get your evenings back, right? Because those 1 or 2 hours, like, if you have a busy practice like I did, I literally spent 2 hours a night doing them because there was that many for all the docs and myself and the whole works. And it was like, okay, if I can take that load off somebody. And so I, just kind of subtly put out the word on a couple of social media posts. I don't even have a website. I just started working on the website now, Glenn, because I was like, I probably should have something.
Yeah.
So it's going to be mgcalign.com. It should be published within the next couple of days.
MGCalign.com.
mgcalign.com. Yeah.
And for everybody out there, by the way, she was doing the Clinchecks for her associates in practice, not the other way around, which is so common, right? And so, MGC Align. Do you care to go into a little story about how I know the story,
You know the
and I know
story.
you think it's lame. I think it's a
It's
great
so
story about how
late.
you got the name MGC. So please, if you don't mind sharing it, I think people will
Absolutely.
laugh.
Glenn, it's such a lame story. Like, this is so lame. But anyway, so what ended up happening was one particularly dark evening. Okay, there's like tons of snow on the ground. I'm in Nova Scotia, right? I'm like, man, the weather sucks because I love the beach. I love going outside all the time, right? That's kind of more of my vibe. And so I'm stuck in Nova Scotia, middle of winter. It's probably like minus 20 degrees outside, which is like minus 6,000 Fahrenheit. We're Canadian, so I'm like, I have no idea what minus 20 degrees in Fahrenheit is, but it's really cold. And so I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, I wish I was in California. And, my accountant's like, you need a new practice name or like, corporate name because I just sold my offices and da da da. And so I needed a new name. And I'm like, I wish I was in California. Maggie's going to California. I'm like, it's going to be mgcalign.com or MGC Align, right? Limited. And so anyway, so the rest is history. So that's why the website's called that. That's why my business is called that because, when it's cold, I'm thinking about going to California.
Maggie's going to California. It should technically be Maggie's going to MGTC, but we won't get into
Yes.
that right now.
I just kind
But
of missed that T because I was like, it's getting long.
it's okay. MGCalign.com works
Yeah,
great. And so,
thanks.
um, just so everybody knows, Maggie does this. If you're interested in
Mhm.
outsourcing your Clinchecks, she does it, and she does every single one of them herself.
I do.
It's not like you're handing this off to AI. It's not like you're having an associate do this. You're doing each one yourself, right?
Yes, I am. So the way that it usually works, Glenn, is, one of the doctors will message me and they'll send me a brief message and say, here's the name of my patient, sort of quick chief complaint, right? I can access the records and then I just take over the case. And once it's ready, once I feel it's ready for that hit accept button, I just fire it over, say, listen, it's ready for your review. Here's a couple of things that I would watch out for during treatment. For example, we anticipate that because the mesial marginal ridge of the upper lateral incisor is a little bit thicker, we might have an interference there. You might want to do a little bit of enameloplasty in that area. I follow the doctor's preferences or I use my own, whatever you prefer. So we have those initial chats as well. And yeah, that's all there's to it. So I think I've become quite efficient at setting them up. And I like to do them myself because then I know exactly what you're getting back. So there's no surprises for me. There shouldn't be any surprises for you as well.
No, I love that. And in
Thank you.
terms of, I think it's important for anybody out there. I mean, there's two kinds of orthodontists who do aligners, right? There's the first kind who say, I really don't care, go do it for me and live and be well.
Totally.
There's a second half who are like, my outcomes really matter. I have these preferences I care about, and I want you to follow them. And the good news is you'll do either way. But
Yes.
I think the question that orthodontists are going to ask is, if I want to turn it over to you, Maggie, what kind of training do you have? What have you done? How do I know that I can trust that you're going to make good decisions on this?
100%. So initially, when I started private practice, and if you ask my friends in ortho, they'll tell you like I am aiming for perfect finishes. I love to do a great job. That's all there is to it. I think finishes are important. I think what you give the patient's really important. I think occlusion's important. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to do Invisalign, I'm going to take every course I can. So I did the fellowship, I've attended the summits, I've done so much continuing education. And so I have that. And I also have the fact that I've done this for 13 years. So I've seen Invisalign, going through its growing pains and going through different attachments and different protocols. And I think I've really learned what works. And my approach has always been I'm not going to learn on my patients. So I haven't been like, oh, let's try this and see what it goes. I think, I've learned through the continuing education, and I was like, okay, let's see what's going to work here. Let's see what works for other doctors and take it from there. And then I've just kind of filed it away into my memory banks, right? And I've kept notes over the years. I've done different things like that, and I've read a lot about it. And so I feel, I've got good protocols, but I think a lot of doctors have really good protocols. And so I'm more than open to following them. And I'm not stuck in kind of one rut with treatment planning. So I'm not extraction, non extraction, you tell me, and I set that up without judgment. You want to extract, great. You don't want to extract, fantastic. Let me help you set it up. So some of those preferences I think are really important. So I take what I've learned, but I also pair it with what you like and what your Invisalign journey has been like.
And you have doctors who basically will say to you after a while, you know what, Maggie, I have preferences, but you've been doing such a great job. Just do it how you see fit, right?
Yeah, I do. I do have doctors who've done that. So I've have doctors who said, I really want to follow these preferences. And sometimes I'll go in and say, you know what, this worked really great, but in this specific case, are you open to doing it this and this way? Because I think we're going to end up with this and this problem if we don't consider this. And so, so I find sometimes we take a leap of faith like that together. It works out well, and we go for it.
That's awesome. So, I mean, if someone wants to get a hold of you and wants to learn more about pricing and everything else that goes along with it, how do they reach out to you?
Perfect. So probably the best way to reach out is to email me. So Maggie's going to California, right? So MGC Align at hotmail.com is my email address. I'm also, if they search Orthopreneur Podcast, there was that comment that I responded to about side hustle. So they can
Right.
find me on Facebook as Maggie BA. So it's Maggie Ba for Barnard.
And by the way, for everybody listening,
Yeah,
because when I heard her say her name, I thought there was an E in there, but it's Maggie.
it is. And Barnard with an A as well.
Right. And so, usually, if a doctor wants to come on board with you, what's the time frame from the moment you say, "Yeah, here's a contract"? They sign the contract. How quickly can you get somebody on board?
Within a day or two. So it's easy. I can integrate them into my schedule, and I imagine at some point we'll probably get to a point where I say, okay, it's going to take longer, but right now I'm still at the capacity where I can make it happen really quick. And I really pride myself on turning around the Clinchecks really quickly, because that's the other thing that I found in private practice where, I would end up in a situation where I'd be like, okay, I have so many to turn around, geez, some of people are still going to be waiting. Versus now I find to the point where I can get your Clincheck back to you within 2 or 3 days.
That's amazing. And when you say
Oh, thank
clinch it back to me within 2 to 3 days, that's including the revisions, right?
Yeah,
That
that's
means
including all the revisions. So the way that it works with me is you submit it because you would put in the treatment plan essentially for the technicians to follow for the initial setup, right? So you'd say, okay, extract upper fours, da da da, whatever, right? And then when that Clincheck comes back for the first revision, from that time to when I get it back to you, it's about 2 or 3 days. There's rare cases nowadays where we still have to get the techs involved. So that's a little bit of a longer turnaround, I think, because it depends on your pod, how quickly they get it back to you, but it's still really reasonable. So especially for those cases that are lagging and you're going, oh man, I didn't get to that today, right? I'm your girl for those too.
that's amazing. So do
That's
me a
so
favor.
awesome. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure. Before we go, remind everybody one more time, what is the way to get a hold of you? Either they can get you on Facebook at
Yes.
Maggie, Maggie BA, as in Barnard,
Yeah.
or send you an email at
So the email address is MGC Align at hotmail.com. It's all one word. Um,
mgcalign@hotmail.com.
yeah, and if they look for me on Facebook, they're more than welcome to message me there. And it's Maggie, then there's a space, and then it's BA.
As in Barnard.
Yeah, you got
It's
it.
awesome. This is so cool. I mean, everybody always complains and says, "Oh, if only there was somebody out there who did this. If only I had somebody help me with my Clinchecks." And right now, there's a doctor listening to this who's overwhelmed, really needs the help, who's
Totally.
going to reach out to you. And that's why it's such a joy to have folks like you on this podcast. And
Oh,
so,
my pleasure. This has been so much fun. And yeah, Glenn, I think there's a need for it because it does kind of tend to take over our lives, right?
it does.
And so it's good if there's somebody can help. And I've tried dealing with technicians, so I've tried to train staff. I've tried, to um, sort of out of the office folks that were, trained to do this, but it's never the same as having another doc. That's why I
No,
thought, this would be kind of a fun void to fill
it
while I have
is.
the time.
I think it's amazing. And I just wish you incredible success with
Oh my
it.
gosh, thank you so much. And I so much enjoyed chatting with you. This was just great.
Yeah, well, thank you. Looking forward to chatting more in the future. Uh,
Absolutely.
we're turning into the season where it's going to start getting a little chillier up in Nova Scotia. So it means more time indoors doing more Clinchecks. So
Exactly. Or on a beach in California. I can do those there too.
I think was it, James Taylor had the song "Going to Carolina" in my mind. You got "Going to California" in your mind. And so, really great chatting with you today, Maggie. Wishing you lots and lots of success with this, and thank you for being such a great resource.
Thanks so much. This was such a pleasure, and I'm so glad you convinced me to be on the podcast. It was a blast.
And if someone out there is listening, you don't think you've got a story, but you
You
do. And
absolutely do.
so just reach out to me. I always love to have you on the podcast. So have a wonderful day, Maggie, and
You as
wishing you
well.
lots of luck with this.
Take care.